concept in physiology, if you don't use it, you lose it.
Okay.
The only form of exercise your prostate gland gets is during erection, and that erection comes with sexual activity. Okay. So the study is abundantly clear that a man in healthy shape should be able to have sexual interaction 21 times a month.
21 times?
A month, to avoid prostate issues, prostate cancer or cardiovascular issues. If you don't exercise the gland, it swells on you, it becomes enlarged. When it becomes enlarged, that is a precursor to cancer. So yes, you have a beautiful wife. Do whatever it takes to please that woman so she can give it to you 21 times a month.
Yeah, but that's if she pleases you, because you have to be in the right state of mind, isn't it?
Yeah, but don't quote me to your wife, Dr. Ken. So if she doesn't please you, I advocate to my patients that you can have a side chick. Your side chick will be on contract, but you just know that you need to do your 21 times to avoid prostate cancer.
There was this controversial topic last week about men having prostate in their 40s and in their 50s and how to prevent it. But what got me thinking is the measures the said doctor said. He said men should have sex 21 times to exercise their prostate gland. I don't know if I got that, but 21 times, won't the man die? Okay. And he said if your wife can't give it to you, you should employ having a side chick. So I have this small question for a Christian man who is a modern man, or let's say a modern man who doesn't want to have a side chick and who doesn't want to employ polygamy. How is he going to survive? How is he going to cope with his health and pass through the whole phase and all? So I thought of bringing a guest who is a doctor and who would answer this question for us. He is a host for Dear Doctor, and he's no other person than Dr. George.
Hi, good day. My name is Dr. George. I practice here in Lagos for some years now, and I'm really glad to be on Data Delight today. And hopefully we're going to get some answers to some of those very, very suspicious questions that we have. So I guess we look forward to those answers then. Thank you, Connie.
You're welcome. So, I know I've seen someone with prostate, someone really close, and how it took him from 100 to 0. Yes, he survived it, but I want to know, what is the cause of prostate?
So when you're saying prostate, we need to clarify that first of all, it's an organ in the male body. But the problem is benign prostate hyperplasia. Then the real, for the lack of better use of word, monster is prostate cancer. So prostate is an organ that the man has, which in most cases, statistically, 1 out of 4 black men will most likely come down with benign prostate hyperplasia. And when it's still not responded to, you're heading straight for a prostate cancer. So I think let's get the perspective straight. Okay. Then we can now say prostate cancer is a malignant proliferation of unwanted body cells. For the layman per se, there's no need shooting medical jargons right now. Spreading from the prostate, seeding out to other parts of the body. But before you get to that stage, you must have had the benign prostate hyperplasia, where this male organ begins to become larger than its normal size. And it comes with all kinds of unimaginable torrential issues. You probably need to visit a hospital where these persons are for you to appreciate the intensity of the problems you can face just from a prostate issue.
That is a whole lot. I know I've seen one before. He used to have this catheter stuff.
Yes.
Where
urinating becomes an issue. Sex is a far cry. Like, when people talk about sex, you're not even conceiving the idea, because to urinate itself, you never urinate. There's something called urinary retention. I want you to imagine, as a man, even as a woman, that time you feel like peeing, because women have this character of holding urine for a long time. I don't know how they mastered it from teenage life or something. You need to urinate, you even drank water, but for some reason, you're in the toilet. Every component of the process is available, but the thing not just gree come out. You just feel like there's a blockade. And if urine feels hot,
Yeah.
and you're in there, nothing. When you meet them, they are, how do I say this in a way that is not proliferative? You've seen those zombie movies where they're looking for blood. They almost want to bite other zombies in search of blood. It's almost like that. They want to get that urine out of them, but they just can't do anything about it. And that's just one thing out of the many things that they can experience. Because, of course, if you're going to hold urine in your bladder for unnecessary hours, then there's the issue of urinary tract infection. There's the issue of pyelonephritis, because this urine is going to travel up. Infection, there's a whole lot that happens to them. So it's not something anyone wants to experience.
Wow, that is a lot. I can't even take in all of that. Back to the prostate cancer. How can a man who is not in his 40s, because they said it's usually when a man is in his 40s that the said cancer comes out or tends to surface.
Anyway, prostate cancer is something that can be age-related, not always age-related. So when someone is in their 40s and above, as a man, you ought to get conscious of your prostate. Not that you're going to have cancer at the time. So when somebody is hitting 50, 60, 70, you should have already been checking on your prostate by doing a PSA. It's a type of test you can do in a hospital to assess the presence of antibodies for that prostate cancer. Now, the thing there is, there are things you can do to prevent it. But what I'm trying to state here is, yes, there's an age relation, but it's not absolute.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So let's talk about what brought my interest into this topic. Because I want you to explain to the world how a man should have sex 21 times in 30 days and not die.
Oh, Lord.
Is that the only preventive measure for prostate cancer?
So first of all, I don't know if smiling and laughing passes for this, but you can't blame me. It's a pretty laughable scenario. When I saw that video the first time, I honestly thought about Solomon. Do you know Solomon, the guy in the Bible?
Yeah, I do.
The guy who had 700 wives and 300 concubines. And like, it's just the perfect time for this guy to come give us a lecture, man. I don't know how he did it or how it's supposed to work. But since this topic is about the modern man, because obviously there must have been some super strength those guys had back then. I mean, I heard of Samson who did all kinds of stuff. So maybe there was a thing then that we don't have now. But there is no feasible physiological way that you expect a man to exhaustively perform sexual intercourse to the ejaculatory point 21 times in a month. It's just too demanding. That's for starters. You also have to put into consideration that this man or this video is a Nigerian video.
Exactly.
You're referring to men in Nigeria, and you have to consider the calorie intake of this man, his calorie expenditure for the day, and ultimately the energy demand for satisfactory sexual intercourse to the point of ejaculation. So much so that I think the man got encouraged to even have a side chick.
Exactly.
In this Nigerian economy. And so if this man is a poor man who can afford certain things, he probably should start preparing for prostate cancer. I mean, you have to understand why it's really a laughable scenario, because when you factor in the different things that has to come into play for a Nigerian man to have sex 21 times, keep a side chick, I guess most of us should begin to prepare our diapers. I'm sorry about that, but it's pretty laughable. So for me, it's not feasible. What I think is feasible is exercising the prostate more than 21 times, if possible. Ejaculation is just one of the ways that the prostate can get some action. There are several other ways. yes, when you mention Christianity and all that, we now begin to consider what is ethical and what is, unethical.
Yeah.
But if you really want to pay attention to your prostate, believe me, you don't need a side chick and you don't have to shoot 21 times in a month to keep it safe.
Wow, that's beautiful. I think my heart has gone,
Where were they before?
So you're going to tell us the other measure. I know you made mention of it, but can you throw more light, like little, for the viewers who may have interests?
Okay. Now, just before the region of the anus, after the scrotal group, there is that space under a man's pubic region. It's just saddled by a muscle. It's the Kegel muscle.
Okay, you mean the normal Kegel exercise?
Yes,
that women
that we
do.
all talk about. Now, that muscle, has a structure that allows it to gain so much access around the prostate. Your ability to exercise that muscle, by extension, exercises the prostate. That's one. Two, you do not necessarily have to have sex 21 times for you to have exercised the prostate. Ejaculation is great for the prostate. But like I said, there are some things that are unethical, but they play a great role, like masturbation. There are some other things that can also happen to exercise the prostate, particularly with that Kegel muscle. So when you feel like farting, but you have to hold the fat so that you don't release it, that muscle you employ to lock down that place is very perfect. If you can intentionally close it, leave it, close it, leave it, you're exercising your prostate by moving that Kegel muscle. And also, as some of you are listening now, you're attempting it. You're closing, you're opening. You're closing, you're opening. And you'd notice that you're not able to keep it up for 10 times, 15 times, because it becomes weary. Fine. That's what happens when you go to the gym. You lift a heavy weight on one arm. You can't even do 20 rounds. You drop it. You rest. But if you notice that you go back to the gym tomorrow, the next day, you're moving from 10 to 15 to sometimes you can pull 100 for the big guys that don't even need steroids because they are used to exercising it. In the same way, if you continue closing and opening, closing and opening, closing and opening, you go from 10 to 15 to 20 to 25 up to 50 and sometimes 100. And guess what? When you meet your woman, I hope that you're married. Today is Valentine's Day. I hope that you're married. When you meet her, you would even be able to hold back your ejaculation until when you want to. That's how proficient it is. Yes, take that home. You can. But it comes with the proficiency of closing and opening. Thank you.
Wow, man, they suffer, woman, no. Interesting. Like, this is a whole. Thank God I am a woman. Because what is all this?
When I get on a wall, shower.
Yes, we do, but the whole close. Thank you, Lord. Your body. Man, they suffer.
You're making this thing look like it's a big...
It looks like a whole job.
It's not.
Because I know you said if you want to fat, take it in and bring it out.
Have you seen little boys trying to do a competition of whose pee can go higher than the other person? It's fun. It's literal fun. If you didn't do it as a boy, I don't know what to tell you right now. You probably have to do a repeat or something. But you notice that as boys become men, that competition disappears.
Yes.
Not for the lack of the desire, because if men go to the loo and they can see each other's whatever, they don't mind taking a shot at that competition again. But for the fact that that muscle is no longer as young as it used to be. That thing cannot shoot as far as it used to shoot.
As a child.
That urine that used to go like this is now going like this. Not because the man does not want to attempt shooting up, but, that muscle is not as young as it used to be. So, what you think is suffering for men, it's actually fun if the man learns to do it. More importantly, when he begins to get results from it. If a man who can't do 10 minutes on his wife begins to intentionally do his Kegel exercise and notices he can double up to 20 minutes,
Interesting.
he talks from both mouths, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I do. I know you would have learned me like this now. I've learned like 40s. I'll take to my husband's house from here. Guys, you see, you don't even need to have a side chick. You don't need to have a second wife. There's just a lot I've learned from what he said, and you guys need to start paying me. So, doctor, you're going to tell us one more thing. Something else that is not related to something else that you can do aside from the
Kegel.
Kegel, yes.
Okay, so basically, there is also the role of diets. You know, in this part of the
Can
world.
I ask you?
So,
The person I said had prostate. I learned it was meat. I didn't want to sound foolish. That's why I didn't ask when we started.
well, for starters, there's a genetic predisposition, like we mentioned earlier.
Okay.
1 in 4 black men stands a chance of experiencing benign prostate hyperplasia. Ultimately, could get to prostate cancer. So, when you implicate meat, I'd like to ask what happened to the 3 other men. Haven't they been eating meat, or are they just vegetarians? So, for starters, there is this strong genetic predisposition. So I was going to mention that in this part of the world, we eat mostly carbs and oil. If you dey chop rice, you get stew wey get oil. If you mix am, you don't turn jollof. You get yam, you get sauce wey be oil. You get swallow, oil obo. It's just like that. But if you can get intentional about your diet as a man as age comes, especially nuts. The prostate organ is actually shaped like a walnut fruit. Thankfully, walnuts are great for the prostate. Different kinds of nuts, cashew nuts, groundnuts, most of these nuts are good for the nuts. So I'm not trying to spoil the show for guys, but you need nuts for good nutting. It's as simple as that. And I know most of the guys who would want to have a very beautiful and medical excuse for a side chick. Spoiler alert, don't necessarily need to. But like I mentioned, you can reduce all the carbs and oil. You can do more of nuts. And you can do more of fruits that are fiber-based. Cabbage, cucumber, garden egg, carrots. These are basically fiber fruits. And they go a long way. There's nothing wrong with bananas, watermelon, and all those. But most of the effects you need, especially in that part of the body, you're likely going to get from these fruits.
That's a lot. I think it's even easier. It's a little easy. But I want to ask you, if a man actually goes 21 times in a month, does it help?
If a man goes 21 times in a month, there's something I'm going to say now. Might be controversial, but nobody walks into class any day and says our topic today is how to have sex.
Yeah.
So people do mostly what the auto lands, movies, books, porn, I don't know, but most of what people consider as sexual practice is basically what they think it is. I don't know what you guys do at home. For you, those of you that have started doing whatever you're doing, but you're doing what you consider to be satisfactory and enjoyable until somebody comes in to say, oh no, you shouldn't do this. Oh no, you shouldn't do that. And then it begins to become like a stereotypical function. Let me not veer so much down into that path. But if a man should try to do that 21 days at a go, of course, you're not going to fall down and die, but energy levels will drop for starters. Performance is not going to be at the same par every other time for 21 days. Ejaculatory release is also not going to be as voluminous and as qualitative as every other day. It takes about 72 hours to completely form the sperm cell. So if you're going every 24 hours, you're not going to have sufficient time to have adequate build-up for each of the release. Some things are not, feasible per se to tell a man to have an ejaculation 21 times. God that gave women 3 to 5 days to menstruate. It's not mad now. Come on, guys.
I just have to say that if you do it 21 times in a month, you will die. Take it from me. I am telling you. No, he said 20. See, he said 72 hours, right?
I'm going to sit up for this one.
72 hours to build up
Sperm cells.
sperm cells.
So
So when you keep losing and losing for 20, no wonder some men are so thin.
I never said that though.
Now
never
I
said
see.
that.
Now I see. Thank you for.
I'm going to categorically say that you have something against men.
No, I don't. I don't.
Or you have something against men exercising their God-given ability.
For 21 days. Even God is against it.
How?
God will be
Where?
because
In the
when you
Bible?
kill yourself, when you want to do worldly things,
Have you read the Old
there's
Testament?
no sex in heaven. No.
Have you read the Old Testament? God literally allowed men to have wives. The so-called wisest man on earth had a whole 1,000 to his singular self. You get women will not get action for 1 full year. Do you know?
They had to wait.
For 2 years.
That's a
Truth
lot.
is, the way the male body is built, it's polygamous in nature. One man can come and impregnate 1,000 women in one day with one release.
Excuse me.
Quite excused.
You said the male body or the human body? Is it the male body or the human body?
The male body.
Male, because
Yes.
I heard the human body because even women are polygamous.
So one woman cannot conceive for 10 men, for even 2 men, for starters.
But
one woman cannot conceive for 1.5 man.
But you don't know that there's this stuff that was flying around. I don't know how true it is, and I don't like all
That's
of those
waiting
things.
happen.
That a woman can actually get pregnant for 2 different men, and the 2 children will stay.
Yes, while that is possible, I want to ask you, have you seen one? But we have all seen one man almost take down an entire village. I was about to mention one artist like that, but let me hold myself.
Please do.
As much as, like you said, the modern man wants to love and marry one man,
Yes, he also wants to work and make money. He wants to be busy.
it doesn't delete his capacity of taking down an entire village of women. That's just the truth. Okay? So, although...
Now I want to be a man. Like...
You can, though.
No. I don't have that energy. Thank you. I like to be me. Thank you.
But I think it's a very straightforward thing. Yes, this capacity is there for the man to get as much action as he wants. But with whatever we think is capacity comes capping.
Yeah.
That you can do this thing as much as you want to does not mean it's the only thing you get to do.
Yes.
If you cross that line, there will always be consequences. We have seen people show up at the hospital literally bleeding from the penis. And when you begin to take history, of course, they don't want to volunteer that aspect of the history first. They want to tell you this happened, that happened, this happened. At some point, it becomes obvious that this guy, especially on the influence of drugs, outdid themselves. You have people want to involve in orgy and the guy shows up and decides by himself that he must go around. Somebody gets admitted into university and decides that his job in this university is to take census. No further comments, Your Honor.
See, today is a lot. This conversation is a lot. Now, let me ask one more question. Is there a mental or let me say a psychological effect of...
Well, basically, you need to be in a certain mental state to even commence the process of intercourse.
Yeah.
If you've seen, I always want to make the analogy from the nature aspect. When you watch animals get into the mood, it's as though they're a bit different from their normal self.
Yeah.
When you watch men get into the humans, let me not lateralize it. When you watch humans get into the mood, you also notice that this behavior is somewhat abnormal. Even Solomon said,
Animalistic behavior.
in Songs of Solomon, that one of the things he doesn't understand, the way of the snake upon the rock, the way of the eagle upon the sky, the way of a man after a woman. He said it. So there is always that mental effect that comes with the whole program. Now, if you're going to put yourself in a state of getting this done 21 times in a month, then I guess you have an alter ego. There's a different person that lives inside you that just waits to perform every other day and goes back. Because that's the only explanation.
Exactly.
When, I think in that video, he mentioned that you should keep your wife happy.
So that she will be able to, you know.
My question is for even the woman who is going to be the person to help execute this 21-day activity. Sister, Afa.
I'm worried about you, sis. I am so worried about you. You know they menstruate? That's a lot. That's a lot.
Anyway, the mental package, like we're trying to buttress, means that, there's going to be more demand mentally. And remember, we're bringing this down to the Nigerian picture.
Yes.
For this Nigerian guy, that is the average Nigerian guy, you're not even that rich. You still need a reasonable mental percentage to execute your daily activities and earn. And now there's this other you that has to manifest every day to save your prostate.
Like the word you use, manifest. That's the right word. So, what, as a medical doctor, since there are other ways to tackle prostate cancer, so what's the average a man should go a month?
Truth about these things is that you always, in medical practice, there's something called range.
Yeah.
Almost everything has a range from
Yeah.
this to this.
Yeah.
And there's always range because people vary. People's orientation, upbringing, a whole lot varies. You meet people who have zero activity. They get married, it's like all hell is let loose, and they want as much as. And then further down the line, it's like the tap just got shut. They don't think they want it anymore. And further down the line, they are active again. There's no fixed proportion to it. But there is, like I've mentioned, a capping, an excess to everything. So while there is a range, you can always pass that upper class limit, which you shouldn't pass. So I can't now say every man must get 4 to 5 times, no. And then there is the role of communication in this whole thing. And this discussion, especially for married people, is such that it takes two to tango.
Yeah.
If your wife is going to be available for, permit me to call it, that 21-day madness, man, I want to see that experiment and how it ends up. But there's always that space where, for some reason, as a human being, she's just not there. Mentally or even physically, it's not happening, which begins to put a cut on the number of times. So you as a man might even be ready. But because the woman at that particular time is not, there's a reason it's a marriage. You didn't buy her. She's not a sex slave. You have to find a way to hold yourself back. It's expected that, according to you, a modern man, a Christian, you were able to hold yourself before marriage. Now that you guys are in it and she's asking for a one-night excuse or whatever, you can hold back. So 21 times doesn't make sense. 2, nobody's going to give you a number and say it must be so number of times, so number of times. Do you need to get some action? Yes. Do you need the action to stay alive? Not necessarily. Why? Like we just discussed, there are other options that can exercise your prostate. Thank you.
Man, they enjoy, woman no see am.
How did we go from man they suffer, woman no, to man they enjoy, woman no see am?
Because he said there is no range, like there's no exact range. And now they also have options. So man, they enjoy, woman no see am.
One day we'll have to talk about women. Not Fiona.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
And I think if we continue talking, as long as it's related to sex, men, women, we will keep talking and talking and talking and talking.
I don't think that's true. I'm not a sex expert that's going to keep talking about sex. But I'd like to leave kind of a Valentine message to people out there. Please, no wed, no bed. It's
Ooh.
Valentine. You don't have to go all crazy and all out there.
Yeah, be like
Okay?
me. Be like me.
Okay, no problem. I don't know who she is, but
But be like me.
All right.
Valentine's Day and I'm here working. Thank you guys for watching. And I hope you learned something. And if you did, please drop it on the comment section and your observation so far. If you've been doing the Kegel exercise, because I know women do Kegel exercise. I didn't know that men actually do Kegel
now we
exercise.
even get themselves. I don't know who that should not be.
Interesting. So, thank you guys for watching. Same time, same place next week.